You are listening to your New Puppies podcast, starting you and your dog off on the right paw. Here's your host, Debbie Salento.
Hello, and welcome to episode 70 of Your New Puppies podcast. I'm Debbie, and today we are going to continue the conversation about raw feeding. So Casey came back and we talked a lot about puppies because we like to talk about puppies a lot around here. If you missed part 1 of the interview, that's episode 69, playtimepause.com/69, where Casey gave us a lot of information to introduce us to raw feeding. Again, she mentioned some resources, which are going to be in the show notes. So let's jump right on in and welcome Casey back. Well, hello, Casey. Welcome back. It's great to see you again.
Yes, it's so good to see you. Thank you. I enjoyed myself the first time so much. And this is just so
You couldn't stay away. You couldn't stay away.
So much to talk about. This is such a big topic, and I appreciate you giving me this time. I think we're going to talk about a lot more during this conversation. And then that just opens the door for people to learn more. And hopefully we'll be able to get people that spark going.
So where we talked about, a lot of the history and the health benefits of raw, I want to kind of get more into the nitty gritty of brought a new puppy home. What do I do now?
Yeah. So that's what we're going to do right now. So awesome. Thank you.
All right, let's talk about, brand new puppy, just brought him home, most likely getting them at most of my listeners are getting them at somewhere between 8 and 12 weeks, something like that. So they're already from a breeder, not most are going to be off of kibble, even rescues, they're going to be off of kibble. Right. And I know that I get a lot of questions, even with, traditional commercial diets about feeding a puppy. So, some of those questions I get is how much do you know how to feed them? How do you know what to feed them? So I'm curious, when you get a new puppy client, how do you start them off? What are your best tips for just starting them off?
Yeah. So if they're part of my group, then I tell them to just get rid of the kibble completely, because we now know, one of the things, I want to put this in the mind of some people, maybe, I don't know, it might be a good idea, it might not, but basically newest research has just come out about kibble, and it's essentially the cancer risks of the things that are in kibble are sometimes levels of magnitude higher than in cigarettes for cancer cause. Mm-hmm. Let's just take that out of the picture. So I don't do any mixing, and we just eliminate it day one.
Okay.
So we just go right to a basic raw food diet. And that can be usually 3 or 4 meals a day. And it's going to be, depending on the age of the puppy. But if they're over, 8 to 12 weeks, it's going to be 3 meals a day for most. And so I like to start the first few weeks with something really simple. Some breeders will just do only ground beef or only ground turkey with no organs and no bones and no supplements, nothing, for the first couple weeks. Now, when I first heard that, I was absolutely freaking out, because I'm like, they can't eat just muscle meat for 2 weeks. They're going to be not balanced, But the truth is that there's a lot of raw breeders that have been doing this 30 plus years, in which that's fine. And so that is one way to do it. And I'm okay with that now. I'm okay with it now. I've relaxed about it. That's okay. But you want it to be a lean and raw. You don't want it to be cooked, but you have a young animal. You want it to be served at room temperature. So you can either heat up a little bit of raw goat milk or raw Jersey cow milk, and you can just warm that up, and you can boil water. I like to boil water in a tea kettle and just splash it on the food so that it kind of heats it up a little bit. I don't recommend ever microwaving things for a variety of reasons, but just warming it up in a way so that it's more like body temperature. And
you're warming it, not cooking it.
Correct. You just want it so that it's not a shock to the little baby. They're so young. It's just like a baby getting a bottle. You want it to be more like body temperature. So that would be better for their digestion and for their temperature control, especially if you have a little teeny tiny, like a little tiny Chihuahua or a teacup animal. They're more at risk for stressing on their body and their immune system if their temperature changes, and if they eat something really, really cold, that could be stressful for them and dip their immunity.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that their immune system stays nice and strong, especially with the new house and everything being new to them, new microbiota, everything's new, and there's a lot of stress involved. So oftentimes they'll have digestive upset no matter what you feed them. And I'm sure you've had that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I just want to step back for 1 second because you mentioned microbiota.
Yeah.
Just explain exactly what that is. Because when you say that, I think of like, is that like probiotics or like? So explain exactly what that is.
Right. So the microbiota, we all have, every surface and living beings we are made up of all this microbes, little microbes you can't see.
Right.
And we have more microbes in our gut than we do some crazy numbers. I don't actually remember them off the top of my head, but it's something like there's more microbiota in your own stomach than there is sand or something, grains of sand at the beach or some insane number. Right. Mm-hmm. But they have we're learning more and more about it, but that microbiota is the flora in your gut and on your skin. And the same is true for your animal, but it's also true for the environment that the animal's in. So the environment that they're in, whether they're in nature, they're going to be exposed to different microbiota. If they're at home, they're exposed to a different microbiota. And each household, in each home, and even different areas of the home will have a different spectrum of microbes that they're exposed to. So if they've been from the breeder's house and then they come to your house, it's going to be a different environment for them from all the things that we can see and hear, but also from the things we can't see and hear, which is that microbiota, which has a huge influence on their immunity and also their gut balance. So the probiotics are the seeds that we plant. Okay. And then the prebiotics and the food is almost like the water to water the plants. If you think about it's a garden in your gut. So there's prebiotics, there's probiotics, there's even postbiotics now. But you basically, like, prebiotics are things that are feeding the probiotics, and the probiotics are what make up all of the good bacteria in your gut. There's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. There is bad bacteria. It is there. You will not eradicate the bad bacteria. What we want to do is have a nice diversity and a nice population and enough of the good bacteria to crowd out and control the bad bacteria. And that's what they're there for. That's
and that balance, it really, as I understand it, has everything to do with health. Like, yes.
Behavior.
From behavior to skin to everything.
Yeah. Skin, behavior, immune system.
Okay.
Yep. Everything.
Okay. So let's go back, because I liked what you were saying, like a puppy's in a new environment, new microbiota, maybe has an upset stomach, gets diarrhea, might even throw up, because yes, that happens regardless of what
you're going to feed. Okay. So thank you for confirming that. Cause I say that as this raw lady and they're like, yeah, maybe.
But
experience, it happens no matter what, it happens no matter what you feed them. So
puppies they have sensitive stomachs.
They do. But, there's just a lot going on, and so, there's a lot going on, and this is the time for their bodies to learn. That's their body learning. Let their body learn. Don't go immediately in and stop everything. Let their body, we don't want to suppress those symptoms, within reason. You want to know when it's risking their health and they need to go see a vet or something. You need to interfere. But basically, you want your animal to experience some of these little minor things. It's not such a bad thing, because that's their bodies getting stronger and learning things. So that's what they're meant to do the whole first year. It's all kinds of diarrhea and skin stuff. It's a lot of digestive things and skin things. And if we don't interfere and we can just support them through those periods where they have trouble with those things, but we don't go in and really shut it down with strong drugs and stuff, but we let their body kind of, within health, as long as they're stable, they have their stable vital signs, and we can let them come to their own adaptation and use our own immune systems just to fight those, or, reestablish balance with those under those conditions, they're going to be healthier long term. Okay. So when they go home, you can either do a lean, boneless meat and room temperature, and feed 3 meals a day. And what you feed them is going to be 2% their expected adult weight. So for example, if you have a little puppy and the adults are going to be 50 pounds, you think, that's what the parents were around there. then you're going to feed 16 ounces a day, and you're going to split that between 3 meals.
I love that. My listeners are going to love that very specific number.
Easy. And the thing is that they go, but what about when they get to be adults? Like, then they'll still eat the same amount, but it's going to be, you'll have a 50-pound dog eating 16 ounces a day, which looks normal, versus this little teeny puppy eating 16 ounces a day, but it's the same. It's not really any different.
So you feed them the same amount
Mm-hmm.
from puppy through adulthood.
Correct.
It doesn't increase or decrease.
No. I mean, just proportionately, if you look at how little the little puppy is.
Okay.
It seems like a lot.
All right. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying now.
Now, there's another way to go about that where you calculate 5 to 10% their weigh-in, and you weigh them once a day or once a week. But boy, is that a lot of calculating, and it's super complicated, and it's not easy. So this expected adult weight is great. And let me tell you something, it's still just a start, because those averages and estimates are for the averages, and your dog might not be the average. Your dog might need way less or way more. So it's a place to start with, and then we adapt accordingly. And people go, oh, well, I was feeding more because the dog was so hungry. And here's the thing. We don't go by appetite, and we don't go by charts. We don't go by what they weigh on the scale. Like if I say, how's your dog's weight? And they go, oh, well, they're 50 pounds. I go, no, what I was meaning was, what do they look like?
Okay.
So it's based on body condition. So we want their body condition to be our guide about how much they need. If they start to get too heavy, you back off. If they start to get too lean, you feed more.
Which is exactly, and which is true no matter what you're feeding them, whether it's raw or not. Right. I agree, because my listeners know I am a huge fan of writing everything down and kind of taking, because something I've heard, like, in my own, research and everything, it's like, take a log of your dog every day. Like, I mean, if they're puppies, we're already recording their poop. We're already
the poop report. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to have what I call the poop report. So I would do what would be like the morning walk with my partner. And then it would be the midday walk with the dog walker, who had to fill out this form. The poor dog walker had to fill out this form of like what all their possible symptoms were. We're working with a homeopath. So it was not even just poop and pee and play, the 3 P's, poop, pee, play, but it was also like, were they a little bit sensitive with the, I was like all these questions, right? And then, but like, I kept these logs, and then it was the evening walk and the logs there too. And it's basically that, that will be so helpful for you to look back. Like
Yes. Yeah. That's why I love, because it's like, look back 2 weeks from now, like what did it say there compared to what it says here? Yeah. Like, I love that because, potty training is such a journey. And it's, when you're in it, it feels like it's never ending and you can see your progress. But this is another way, is you're keeping track of your dog's mood, and they're not just the poop, but like how it looks, and should I be feeding more? Should I be feeding less? What do they look like? What's their weight? And I'll say it again, is that's no matter what you feed your dog. Like, that's why they're like, well, how much am I supposed to be feeding your dog? I'm like, well, ignore the bag, because that's always an overestimate.
It's an average. It's basically like, this is where you can start. So start there if you need somewhere to start, but don't think that's like what the label says to do.
Especially when they don't eat that much. It's like, it's okay. It's okay. Your dog's not going to starve itself.
The dog doesn't like this. And I said, well, okay, so they bring the dog in. Then I'll go, oh, can I see? And they bring the dog in. And I'm like, the dog's just roly-poly. And I'm like, you know what? I really think they just weren't hungry. It's like, they just did. They were like, I'm good. I'm totally not hungry.
But I also get that anxiety, because like, that's like the one thing, it's like, we want to control it. It's like, well, this is their health. We want to make sure that they're eating. We want to make sure that they're eating it right. So I get that new dog owner, like, anxiety about it. Yeah. And unfortunately, the advice is you figure it out. You figure it out as you go along.
And your dog will be the one to be determining this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And so speaking about the poop, I have a great blog post about poop.
Oh,
so because I get that question a lot. Fun. So if you go to sfraw.blog and you type in poop, there's going to be pictures and everything. So there's all the information in there about because this is one of the things that people say, oh my God, I think something's wrong. They're only pooping one tiny little poop a day or every other day. And I'm like, enjoy. That's one of the great benefits of raw feeding.
That's also
one
something
of the
I've heard.
Wonderful things is you're not buying. So that's the thing too, is that they have this voluminous, tons of waste material and so much, poop basically that they're, and you're spending all this money on poop basically. It's like, and what you're doing is when you're feeding raw food and there's barely any waste coming out is because you're just spending the money on what they need, like the actual nutrition that their body needs. And you're not paying money for things to just pass through the dog without any benefit.
And those are two things I've heard. So I'd like to know if they're true is yes, they poop less on
way
raw,
less. And they don't drink water.
That was you beat me to it. And they don't drink as much water because the fresh meat itself has so much moisture in it. That's what all they need. Right.
Yeah. So they'll drink a lot of water after eating like a really big bone, or if they had a big treat session with a lot of dehydrated treats, or on a hot day, they're really panting or they've really charged along. But a lot of my dogs, they would just drink something. They would go out for like their 4-hour hike. And so they would maybe drink on the way when they got home after something like that, like one drink, but it's definitely, don't be concerned if they're not drinking.
Real quick, because I know that this is going to be a question, especially because I'm a trainer and I'm a reward-based trainer, which means treats.
Yeah.
When you're doing a raw diet, what do you recommend as like training treats?
Yeah. So that's really great. You can get a dehydrator or use your oven and make your own. That to me is the best, because you can even use their food. Like if, for example, you're feeding them ground beef for the first few weeks or days. So also I should probably let people know feeding ground beef is only really like okay for a very short period of time. That is not a diet that's like, I want to make sure people know that's not what you should feed long-term forever and ever.
Okay.
But, going to that Perfectly Rawesome website, they'll give you the amounts that you need to feed, and they have a puppy guide. It will tell you exactly what to feed to be, quote unquote balanced. So making your own is going to be best because you're able to buy the ingredients, you know exactly what they are, and you know that they're not going to be mishandled, mislabeled, tainted with some sort of problem with the ones that are bought in pet stores or online. There's more and more small producers making nice, high quality treats, but frankly, even the ones in the pet stores are problematic in a lot of ways. So because of the ingredients that they have, or they say it's, from America, but it's not really from America. There's like a lot of things that are potentially risky, and people think that the treats they're just treats. But the thing is sometimes it's the treats causing all the problems. I see that all the time. It's like, if we drop the treat, that one treat they got, put them off for a week with their digestion. And they go, but it was just this one treat that at the, had a puppuccino, or they went and got, some like little snack or something. But the training treats and something you're going to be utilizing so much in the beginning, you really want to get that narrowed down to something that's going to be healthy and safe and part of their protocol. So I like to just take things like, hearts, or, even, any kind of like meats that are lean. And you don't want something that's fatty, and you could just chop it up and put it in the oven on the lowest setting and dry it out, and then put that in bags and put that in your freezer. That's going to last. Those are great treats. The other thing you can do is, like raw cheese chopped up. That works out really well. And you can mix that up. Sometimes dogs who eat raw, they can sometimes be a little more picky actually, because they get such good food that they're like,
their food is better than anything else you could give them.
So I had one who was just so not food motivated. It was like, whatever.
How do you feel about giving just because it's more portable, cooked chicken as a treat instead of like a boiled chicken instead of the raw chicken breast that would be their meal?
You could totally do that. Yeah. The only thing about that is you would have to be careful about how much treats you're doing, that you're not upsetting the apple cart with like their whole nutrition program.
Right.
But definitely keep that in context and keep it calculated. It does count. Those treats count like on the influence on your animal's health, but also it counts nutritionally. So maybe you have to kind of figure out, make sure that you're not overfeeding. With little dogs, it can be a problem. So you have to be careful with that. The other thing that works good is like, I think it's Wild Planet. They have a canned, no salt, hormone-free, antibiotic-free chicken breast. And it's cooked in a can, and you can chop that up into it's almost like a little puck, and you can like chop it into little bits, and that works really good.
Okay.
We saw that. That's really nice. They also have that for your salmon, but the salmon's really stinky and it kind of flakes. So it's not like a little nugget. It's like harder, the texture of it.
Right.
But the cheese works good. That works good. Dehydrating your own or buying like a freeze dried treat from some companies or some good ones. There's one called Canine Natural, and they do ones from New Zealand that are just grass-fed, grass-finished beef and lamb. And they even have a tripe one. It's really valuable. So the dogs really like that. And it's little bits, and they're nice little bits of parts of animals, basically. So they have like heart and lung and all of those kinds of things those are nice to use. So they're dry though. So you have to think about that as far as the quickness of the reward. Like when it's dry, they can kind of almost choke a little bit. Right. So you have to think about the right treat for the right training program. But there's always, get creative, and it isn't that hard. It's really easy to make your own at home. And, we sell treats, we make them, but I always go, you could buy them here, but I also have the ingredient right here. You could just pick this up and go home and do it, but not everybody wants to do that, but it's not like much. You don't really do much. I mean, you just put it in the oven and then you go do things. You don't have to like sit there and watch it because it's just going to dry a little more dry. It's not that big a deal. It's like, it's not like something where it's like, you're not making, baked Alaska or, something that has to like watch it, make sure it doesn't fall, or, it's not like this super complicated cooking thing. It's just like,
right. Cause I mean, you have a puppy to watch. You can't really be spending all the time in the kitchen.
And there's great dehydrators. Excalibur makes a great one. They're here in Sacramento, and I've used a million different dehydrators and I love theirs. They're just simple. You can buy them used sometimes, and they last forever. Those little workhorses, they're great. So if people want to invest in their own dehydrator, that's a great idea. It's so easy too. It really is. It saves you so much money. I mean, it's so expensive to buy treats, and you could buy like chicken hearts or something like that, and it's just going to be so much cheaper.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this is where we're wrapping up the interview, and Casey gives some last pieces of advice for anyone who still might be a little overwhelmed thinking about switching to raw feeding.
You were right. Like the thing you said is just start. I want people to get like, there's all this information. I might have totally overwhelmed them, and I'm sorry if I did, but it's 33 years and I'm totally obsessed. So it's what you get.
You just want to give it to everybody all the time. I understand that.
It's just I'm usually totally quiet, but you get me on this topic and I cannot shut up. So it's just I'm totally obsessed. And I tell people I'm obsessed. You don't have to be. Just relax when you come to the shop. I've done all the crazy research. But the thing is that you're right. Just don't overthink it and just start. Whether that's buying Answers Pet Food or Raw Dog Food and Company, or just going to your local butcher, your local farm, and picking up something and get started. Going to Perfectly Rawsome, you can start to learn a little bit more as you go. You learn more about your own animal, because even if you know all of the things and you have it all calculated out, when the rubber hits the pavement or the road and you start feeding the food, it's going to change, because your dog is going to make that. You're going to have to adapt to your dog. So just get started, keep the learning going. Don't feel overwhelmed. One of those resources, if you want to have a diet formulated for you, you can go to that website I mentioned.
Which is great. I think that's a really great resource.
That you can, just reach out. There's resources available to you online. It can be very confusing, but that's only because there's so many different ways to do this, and there's no one right way, and you will be okay. Getting rid of that processed food adds 3 years to your animal's life. That's like a human going from dying at 70 versus dying at 100, a healthy 100. That is dramatic. That is people go, oh, it's only 3 years. 3 years?
That's take 3 years extra with my dogs. I'll take 6 months.
That is insane. So there's research that shows, and the earlier you do it, changes their ability to be able to have the biggest thing is skin problems and cancer. And those are two of the biggest problems that dogs have these now. And if you get them off of that processed food, and the sooner and the fastest you get them off of that, the better, because every meal you feed to them, you're either causing harm or you're causing health. And you want to keep building that health. There's enough, even if you did everything perfect, your dog still has a risk for cancer, because it's just the way world we live in, unfortunately.
Right.
And so if you can stack that deck against all those terrible things, and do it every day and every minute you can, you'll be in a better position. You'll be creating a better, healthier, longer life for your animal, and less vet visits and less stress for everybody. And it'll just be so much happier time.
Very well said. Well, this has been wonderful. And you are just a wealth of information. And I thank you so much for being so generous with it. So again, just give us your website and your blog where people can go and find you. I'm going to link to all of these resources in the show notes, but just real quick, if they just want to head over to your website, especially I might have some listeners in the San Francisco area. So
we have people who come. Yesterday, someone came from Washington. So, I mean, she's flying back with her food. Yeah. I mean, we have people who come down from Oregon, pick up stuff for 3 months at a time. Los Angeles, we have a whole bunch of people from Los Angeles coming up this week to pick up. So, there's people from all over, and you may or may not be that dedicated or interested in SF Raw, but I just have to tell you that you wouldn't be considered crazy. We definitely would be like, oh yeah, we have people like that. You're in good company. We totally get you. You can come on in and you can, So, and we're open 7 days a week. You can come in anytime. But otherwise, as far as like local resources in the United States, it's going to be that eatwild.com website. Okay. You'll be able to find local farmers, not local raw food, but local farmers. And a lot of them will have things. And I love connecting people to their local food shed. So that's important to me. The quality will be better. And it'll help you establish great relationships for your own food, like getting your own food too, which is great.
Right. Awesome.
And then sfraw.com is my website. We don't ship. So if you go, oh my gosh, look, you can buy things and also we don't ship. So sorry.
You still have to come pick it up.
Our stuff is on the website, but it's not to ship. I'm sorry. And then, my blog is sfraw.blog. And I have a YouTube channel and Instagram. And Instagram, I actually have 3 different accounts. I have SF Raw, and I have a lot of educational stuff, and we share a lot of things there. And we have an IGTV account with a lot of things on there too. But I have 2 other accounts. So my Great Dane, she has an account, and I try and make every post about her meals and be real educational. So that's a good place to learn, and you can see what I feed her. So you can see pictures of her meals and what it looks like. And then I explain what she's eating and why. And so you can kind of get an idea. And I'm doing a 10-day trial right now, and I'm going to put it all into a nutritional analysis program that I purchased. It's a super expensive veterinary program. I'm going to put it to the test, her diet for 10 days. And I'm not like influencing it. I'm just like doing the 10 days. And then I'm going to see honestly what it looks like. So I think that'll be interesting and insightful. But so that's What Groovy Eats. Her name is Groovy, like Groovy. So What Groovy Eats in Instagram. And then my cats, I don't know if you have any cat people here, but my cats, all the CAT word.
No, we are very cat friendly around here.
So my cats also have theirs. And my cats, I have a 3-year-old and an 18-year-old, and they were ferals that I caught when they were little 4 and 5 week old kittens. So they've been on ROF since day one. And that's Briar and Bones. So BriarAndBones. So Briar and Bones, and that's their meals too. So yeah.
Casey, thank you so much. Again, thank you so much. And I'm sure that maybe we'll hear from you again sometime.
We'll see. If people have questions, I'm happy to come back.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to bring you back because I can't answer them.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate being your guest. Thank you so much.
Yes. Bye-bye. Okay. Bye.
And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about raw feeding. What's nice is Casey gave us lots of resources, including herself, to learn even more if you would like. You're going to find all of those in the show notes, playtimepause.com/episode 70. So that's playtimepause.com/episode 70. And that is all I have for you today. If you're enjoying this podcast, you can rate and review it wherever you listen, and that helps other dog owners find the podcast. If you would like to continue working with me, you can check out my website, playtimepause.com, where you'll find information on my in-person sessions, my virtual sessions, and my 4-week new puppy course. I also have a new program coming out in the new year, which I hope to have some information for you soon. I'm very excited about it. It's a digital product for dogs of any age. Until then, Thank you so much for listening. I'll be speaking with you soon. Bye for now.